I'm Jim,
And I'm Garrett.
and this is
Jim and
Jim and
Garrett
Garrett
at
at
the
the movie.
movies.
Hello, everyone. Tonight we are going to be reviewing the new Judy Garland biopic starring Renee Zellweger, and directed by Rupert Gold. It is tells the story of Judy Garland in the last winter of her life when she is doing some sold out concerts in Britain. Mainly a character study. Judy Garland marries her fifth husband during this time and struggles with drug addiction and uh, not being able to live up to her legacy. What do you think of this movie, Garrett?
I'm going to make it unambiguous right now. If Renee Zellweger doesn't absolutely crush the fucking Oscars, you should burn them to the goddamn floor.
Wow.
Uh, I think Renee Zellweger is so absolutely brilliant in this film. It is one of the best pieces of acting I have seen in a tremendously long time. Uh, I can say a lot of good things about this film, but 90% of them will be what Renee Zellweger does. I was sold on it when I saw the trailer. It's not a story or a concept or even a person that I think I would have had much interest in the abstract. You tell me it's a Judy Garland biopic, I'd be like, okay, not interested. Saw that trailer, I'm like, oh, that looks good, and saw the film, and holy hell, does it deliver? This to me is it's uncontestable. I have difficulty even imagining another actor approaching a performance this good in a film. So I'm calling it right now. She deserves the best actor. Period.
I think Florence Pugh should have something to say about that, but you haven't seen Midsummer yet. But nevertheless, I think I look. You are heaping praise upon somebody who is totally worthy of praise. This is a transcendent performance. It is absolutely fantastic. She, in every single frame of this movie, embodies the soul of Judy Garland. And in fact, that's what I would say about the film writ large. I actually don't, I have a little bit of complaints about the movie. I think that the film isn't terribly heavy on story. I don't think it has much of a story. I don't think there's much of a structural integrity to this movie. I think all of it rests on this singular performance, which is good. So I think the film at the end of the day, it's not a story, but it is the soul of Judy Garland in a film, and that is a hell of an achievement. I walked out of this movie. I'm a relatively I like Judy Garland quite a bit. I'm relatively a fan of hers. I really liked her music, and I thought that she was sort of one of these tragic Hollywood stories that I'm happy that they're making a biopic of her. And what's really good about this movie, it sort of modernizes uh, Judy Garland's story in the Me Too era. It sort of turns Judy Garland into an early case of the Me Too era with her interactions with LB Mayer. And it shows how those early days of abuse and there's no other fucking word for it. MGM abused this woman, and the ripple effects that that had over the rest of her life is embodied in this movie. I I agree with many of your praises. Overall, though, I'm having a little bit problem with the film's lack of structure and lack of story. That said, I think that everything you're saying is right.
So yeah, I think in principle you are correct. Yeah, there isn't much of a story here. And like I say, if you were to pitch this film to me, even a long pitch, if I were to read this screenplay, I almost certainly would pass on it. Yeah, this is not a project that would interest me on the page. But and it's precisely because usually that's such a thing for me, right? I'm always criticizing story. I'm always talking about the weaknesses in the screenplay and so forth. But Zellweger was so transcendent in this film that I stopped caring about any of that. That was how good she carried this film completely. Every single nuance, every single gesture, every single frame, everything she does, she's doing 50 different things with her face all at the same time, and none of it feels forced or artificial or feels like it's overacting. It just feels like she is embodying this character and bringing her to life. And that's an astonishing thing for to be have such a good performance that it makes me completely not care about the failings of the writing, or I mean, in as much as they're failings. I mean, it's not poorly written. It's just like you say, not a whole lot in the way of story going on here.
Right. Yeah, there's a particular scene that was um I can't describe it, but its emotional impact on me was uh, one of the strongest things that I've seen on film in a while, and that is the scene between Renee Zellweger's character Judy Garland and two homosexual fans who were criticized and in one case imprisoned for their relationship. And I am so happy that the film was able to bring in the fact that Judy Garland sort of became a revered figure in the gay community, and that moment that moment in that scene, at the end of that scene, when it is very clear that this person who they have revered um, is not only sympathizing with their pain, but adding sort of their pain to her pain. And there's a real human interaction there. That's the best that I can describe that scene. But it's a scene that deserves to be watched because it is brilliantly carried through by all of those actors and by the director and the writer as well. It's such a good scene. And it's moments like that, little moments like that, that carry this movie and that make it something transcendent and special. Yeah, we haven't even talked about her singing so far. She gets Judy Garland like perfectly. It's absolutely amazing how good she is at singing Judy Garland
Yeah,
songs.
I actually sat through the entire credit roll of the film, in part because I wanted to check and make sure that that was actually Renee Zellweger singing, and
That's Renee Zellweger
yeah,
singing.
and they didn't pull some, what they did in Bohemian Rhapsody, right, where they sort of used Freddie Mercury's vocals instead. I wasn't sure. Again, I don't listen to Judy Garland. I don't know. I've heard her songs, of course, but I don't know them well enough to know what Judy Garland sounds like versus Renee Zellweger. And yeah, hot damn if that isn't Renee Zellweger singing. And I don't know if I've ever heard Renee Zellweger sing before, but I
Chicago.
wouldn't have imagined she could sing that well because it's right, Chicago, right? She's in Chicago, right? Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. So I have heard her sing before, and she was fine in Chicago. No criticism of her singing in Chicago, but even on that basis, I wouldn't have imagined that she could pull this off because crushed it, absolutely crushed it. Vocal performance. So yeah, such a compliment to the fantastic acting.
What else do you want to highlight about this film? Because I think that the Me Too element I thought was sort of an interesting recontextualization of the film, and I think it works perfectly with Garland's life, and the musical performances. There's one other thing that I want to highlight, but I want to sort of throw it over to you to let you throw more and more praise on this movie.
Yeah. The I'd heard that Judy Garland went through some shit. I didn't really quite know the details, and I still don't know the details. Again, it's only sort of peripherally alluded to. It's not the main focus of it, but it definitely hangs over it, and it contextualizes the character and makes a lot of sense of her struggles and her problems. So yeah, that was both a nice way, yeah, kind of acknowledging, some shit don't change, and that's a problem, but also not doing it in a way that sort of felt heavy-handed, doing it in a way that facilitated our understanding of the character. And to that, I think that's what I want to say is that through this fantastic performance, I feel like I have a genuine understanding of Judy Garland as a person. Again, I haven't read a biography. Maybe the film doesn't represent it accurately or fairly, so I'm going somewhat out on a limb here. But I walk away from this film having a sense that I really understand who she was. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a biography of Gustave Flaubert, and he said he embarked on this project because he wanted to try to answer the question, how much can someone know about another person? And after like 800 some odd pages or something like that, he basically abandoned the project with the conclusion, not that much. You know, there's not that much you can know about a person after 800 pages. We only ever have this glimpse of them, and we never really get to the soul of a person. And that's part of the tragedy of living as social animals in a world with other beings that are so complex and so hidden from us. And that's kind of a tragic note in a lot of ways. And I always think about that when I read biographies or watch biopics. What can we know about another person? And I think this film succeeds so astonishingly because I feel it puts the lie to Sartre's conclusion. I feel I know Judy Garland very, very well after watching this film. And that is a hell of a thing to squeeze into something that comes in just under 2 hours.
Well, let me say that it's worse. That Sid Luft gets treatment, like very kind kid gloves treatment in this movie. He was abusive, he was an alcoholic, and yet in Rufus Sewell's performance and in the way the film is written, not much of that comes through. And I was actually waiting for a little more of that relationship to be explored. So if anything, her life is worse than what's portrayed in this movie. But nevertheless, I think we see that carry. I think we see the pain that she has endured over the course of her showbiz career in her face and in her performance. I Do you think so? This is one thing that I've been sort of struggling with as I've been thinking about this film. Do you think that this sort of condemns show business writ large, or how do you think? What do you think this film has to say about show business qua show business?
That is an interesting question.
Because it's
That
nuanced, right? It's not just that, there are predatory men and blah 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 and life sucks and you don't ever get into, because Judy Garland famously, after Liza Minnelli started to get into show business, she told her other children, and we don't see this in this movie, but it's in her biography, that she wished that her other children wouldn't get into show business, even though financial necessities require that she kind of push them in that direction. Um,
uh, Yeah, it is nuanced, and again, I can't help but see it through her eyes. Again, she clearly loves performing, but also has a serious problem with it. Early on in the film, after she has her sort of first performance in London, she walks off stage and she's clearly upset. And one of the other characters is like, "Why are you upset? That was a phenomenal performance." And her answer is, "What if I can't do it again?" Right?
right.
Which, oh my fucking God, to have someone who has been in show business her entire life, who is a consummate performer and so good and so beloved by her audience, to still be eaten away by that insecurity, right? To be so on display, on consumption for everyone, and then to have nothing left for yourself. It in a lot of ways embodies sort of both the awesome power of being on stage and the tragedy of living a life dedicated to the stage.
Yeah, I want to read you a section. This is sort of an old Hollywood story. I revisited it. It's on the Wikipedia page. But this is an old Hollywood story that I've known for quite some time, and sort of. So she made appearances on Bing Crosby's radio show, and this will make you love Bing. So I'm gonna quote from the Wikipedia page, because that has the quote directly. She was standing in the wings of it, trembling with fear. She was almost hysterical. She said, "I cannot go out there because they're all going to be looking to see if there are scars, and it's going to be terrible." Bing said, "What's going on?" I told him, and he walked out on stage and he said, "We got a friend here. She's had a little trouble recently. You probably heard about it. Everything is fine now. She needs our love. She needs our support. She's here. Let's give it to her, okay? Here's Judy." and she comes out and of course kills it. I mean, that's what Bing Crosby was, and that's yeah, like it's a film that sort of displays the complexities of the artistic life. And that scene that you're referring to when she's distraught after that first show, I one of the conclusions that one of the thoughts that occurred to me when I was watching that was, each song takes something out of her, and I think that you see that in Zellweger's performance, and that seems to be what the show is, what the film is saying, that each performance takes something out of the artist, and they freely give it because they love the art, and but the pain is still real.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is going on here. That it's far more nuanced than just there are predatory men and show business sucks. But there's something more about the sort of what it costs to be an artist.
Yeah, there's a part of her, I mean, and this is probably, I think, the largest, most explicit part, that just wants to be done with it. She wants to retire. She wants to spend time with her children. And that love is palpable, and that love is real. But at the same time, when she is on stage and when she's doing her thing, you know that she's absorbing every single piece of love, every single element that connects. When the flow is there, she is an artist in pure form, and that is an exceptional and wonderful thing to witness. And it sort of it seduces and destroys her at the same time.
Yeah, and it's we obviously won't spoil the film. I mean, it's hard to spoil the film, but I think that comes through in the final moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, no joke. When we were finished watching this movie, my wife turned to me and asked me what I thought, and I had difficulty speaking. I was so caught, about how beautiful and how wonderful, not just that Renee Zellweger's performance was, but that Judy Garland was, and that I know that through that performance.
This might inspire you to look back on some Judy Garland stuff. That's yeah. Unfortunately, her film work is less nuanced than some of the things that were in this movie. What do you give it out of 5?
This is a 4.5-star movie for me, and that's entirely or almost entirely on the strength of her performance. Again, a couple of other sort of things, credits, since we spent so much time talking about it. The camera work in this is fantastic. It finds her and she finds it at just the right moments. Again, this was based on a stage play, and I'm sure the stage play is perfectly fine, but you cannot get that kind of close-up action in a stage play that's so essential for getting so much of it. So, I mean, the way the camera worked through the cinematography and the direction, again, entirely focused on finding her and framing her as an artist, deserves credit too, because if you fuck that up, then you would not have showcased that wonderful performance quite so well. So while the cinematography is largely in service of the acting, it's a necessary component to really get that acting across. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Wonderful, wonderful. Love this film. It is tragically underviewed. I sincerely hope that it gets the Oscar buzz that it deserves and people come back and see it, because from what I can tell from the box office, it is not getting the attention that it should have.
I'm 4 out of 5 for all of the reasons that you did. I think the story and writing are a little less. So I'm 4 out of 5. So that is our show for today. A little short today, but we will be back next week, and we will be reviewing the new Zombieland movie, Zombieland 2, and we'll be pairing that with Zombieland 1. Why not? Until
Zombieland
then,
Double Tap.
Oh yeah, because all of the titles suck. All right. Until then, my name is Jim.
And I'm Garrett.
And this has been
Jim and Garrett at the movies.
Good night.